Welcome one, welcome all. Welcome back to the Generation Gap, Bridging the Gap podcast. I'm your host. No, I'm joking. My name is Roydell. I'm here with my dad, Roydell Sr. And today we got some things we want to talk about. Welcome to the table. And so we're going to get right into it. If you watched our previous episode, we really went into depth with some things, tried out a lot of new stuff. In this episode, we're really going to make it just going to drop a lot of the technical aspects of it and just really get to the conversations. I think that's what we want to do, and so that's what we're going to do. How you doing today, Dad? What's going on?
That's a good. Yeah, I'm
That's
really under the weather. I'm sick.
Wagwan, Wagwan, Wagwan.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm good. I'm good for now. I'm trying to get through this. Like I'm really under the weather for the last couple of days. If you're not if you're in Canada or in North America, it's like minus 28 or something like that. So
Yeah,
I got really bad. Yeah. So I'm not feeling well, but we have to get this going. So
absolutely.
that's
The show never
sorry.
stops. So let's get into it. Again, quick overview for those of you that are new to the podcast. You're going to be introduced to our info cards. You'll see the first info card here, just giving you a sense of what the Generation Gap is all about, our mission, what we look to achieve. We have 5 signature segments. First of which is legacy and lessons. I'm going to share the info card here, and I'm going to do the same thing all the way through. So we have value and ventures. That is our second one.
Sorry.
We have health and harmony. There's the info card. Feel free to pause the video. We have foundations and frameworks. There you go. And the fifth and final segment of today is culture and connections. And there is the info card there. So that'll hopefully get you caught up to speed as to where these topics are from. We have different playlists on our podcast to really get into it. So let's jump into it, Dad, starting with legacy and lessons. So today, what I actually want us to talk about is where confidence comes from. Okay, so where confidence come from, and keeping with the legacy and lessons and thinking back about how I grew up, a lot of things come to mind. One, there was always this conversation about abundance. I feel like when I look back, one of the things that you really wanted myself and my brothers and sisters to get is the idea that the universe is abundant and to take up space in the universe. I think that ties very closely to confidence because you really wanted us to reverse, almost like reverse engineer our psychology, but physiology as well, right? So one of the things you said is, open up your hands, like show your palms, open up, put your hands out. And we tied that to, remember, we had the periodic table, everything in our room, hydrogen, lithium, beryllium, sodium, magnesium, potassium. I remember I used to go through all of it. But in those conversations, we talked about how the universe expanded. And you tied that to the idea of taking up space. And I thought that was interesting. And I honestly think that's one of the main things that really started to change my perspective. And when you talk about confidence, when you're not confident, you shrink, right? You feel like you're taking up too much space. And I think all of it ties together. And so I have more examples, but I wanted to open up to you first. Where do you think confidence really comes from? And how much is learned at home?
Oh, that's a big one. We're confident. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know.
Yep.
I got stumped.
Memory lane. That's memory
Yeah,
lane for you.
yeah. I think confidence comes from a lot of different places, but I think one of the places where confidence comes from is put in the work. If you put the work in, I'll touch on the expansive section that you mentioned. But once you know you put the work in and you've done your homework, you've gone through the hard things, then your confidence start increasing, right? Like your confidence in a lot of ways is like if you were to make a guess, if you were to bet how that something is going to happen, some event A is going to happen, like how confident you are. I know that's circular. I'm trying to explain confidence and insert confidence in it, but how confident are you that your guess is correct? And you can get that by putting a lot of work. Like if you read, if you learn, if you do a lot of studies, the more you study, it's the more you're expanding yourself. As you said, physiological and psychological. You're psychologically, you're expanding yourself. So confidence comes from this idea, knowing that you can always get bigger or better,
Mm-hmm.
right? So even if you just that one idea, knowing that life wants to live, the more you learn is the more you can learn. So even though there's this thing that I heard about called the Gruber effect, which is slightly different from what we're talking about, but it's the more you know, is the less confident you
Oh, the
you are.
Dunning
Yeah,
Kruger. Yeah, Dunning
that
Kruger effect.
Dunning Kruger effect,
Yeah,
right?
that's
Yeah, yeah. Right? So, so that's it's a kind of dichotomy because the more you learn and the more you know is the more, the bigger your frame is getting, right? Your frame is bigger, so you're getting more and more expansive. But at the same time,
mm-hmm.
because you know that the more you learn is the more you can learn. So now you became slightly less confident,
Right.
or less certain. I don't think I should say confident, less certain of the outcome, but more confident of the outcome.
Right. And is it so? I'd ask you. So, is it of the outcome or your ability to adapt? Right. And I think that's something that's within that space too, because you become. Someone said that. Someone said, if someone's able to take your confidence, this is actually an old coach of mine. If you remember Danny, he
Oh,
said this
Danny.
too. He said, if somebody can take your confidence, it isn't yours. which, which I it's always stuck with me to this day. But what I want to ask you too, because another memory that came up, or as you were saying that was, and tell me if you remember wrestling. One of the things is I was really good at wrestling, never lost the wrestling match, but there were certain tournament events that we would have, and I got so confident in my ability that they were starting to come across a different way, right? Cocky and arrogant, right? And I remember at the meets, I was at this point in time throwing people out of the rink. Like there was nobody really in my level, on my level when it came to that. And I remember you pulled me aside and said,
Yeah, I
"Look,
remember.
none of that cocky stuff, none of that. Humble yourself real quick." And I think you always the main point, or one of the things when I look back, no matter how much you learn, you're not better than anybody else. And a lot of the
Exactly.
times as a kid, when I was seeing you say this to me, kids pick up on energy, right? And the energy that you had, I could tell that this was very important for you to have me understand that you're not better than anybody just because, you know, you might know the answer at this point in time. You're faster, you're stronger, whatever it is, whatever realm. Sports is one thing, but you actually cared less about the sports, more about life, right? So I don't want to give that impression there, but that is something that when I think about confidence and where does it really come from, part of me feels like yes, there's an innate level. I do agree with my coach that if somebody can take your confidence, it's not really yours to a point. But where does it really come from? I think it comes from the work, and this is what you were kind of getting at. Did you put
Yeah,
in the work to get there, right?
yeah.
And then
I
eventually
think
you
so.
become confident in not your ability on a specific thing, but your ability to adapt. And I think there's something
Yeah,
about that, about giving yourself grace. And
yeah.
yeah, so that's kind of my thoughts so far. What do you?
No, to wrap this, yeah, to wrap this part up, one of my brothers, Ricky, he would say, um, if somebody asked him, okay, can you fly a plane? The answer is yes. I just need to go learn now.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You're talking about that. Right? Like, can you drive a truck? I remember the first truck driving job I got for Canadian diabetes. They said, can you drive this truck? I said, yes. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So just to touch on your point, the adopt. Yeah, confidence definitely comes from your ability to adopt, but the ability to adopt is also like an offshoot of the work that you put in other things.
Mm-hmm.
And there's belief that it's transferable. Like even in AI, there's this concept of transfer transference. So you'll train one model, for example, let's say Chat GPT, and let's say Chat GPT was trained on one particular data set. Is it transferable? So can it actually make a prediction on a data set that it has not seen? So
Mm-hmm.
what happens there is that the intelligence is transferable. So if a person, I remember when you were learning basketball, I'm telling you, you're going to be good at basketball because you're good at soccer. Because I
I
see,
remember that.
right, that there's a transfer, like it's the same moving position, boom, boom. So if you can just see that this is transferable, so that's where the confidence comes from. If you're really good at something and you can see that being good at this can also make you be good at that, if you can only see that the nuances,
Mm-hmm.
like that these things are not so different, but they are the same at its core, at their core, then you get a lot of confidence. Like I have a lot of confidence, and so do you, on a lot of different things. I don't know if you ever thought about it this way, but if I'm gonna learn physics, I just say if I'm good at math, I'm gonna be good at physics. There's just certain inherent stuff that's transferable.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's the idea that it's deeper. For example, if I'm good at coding, I'm gonna be good at design. People say no, they're two different things, but I don't see it like that because a designer and a painter, they pay close attention to detail. It's almost like the same kind of work. If you
Right.
talk to a really good designer, one pixel will piss them off. If the
And
thing is one
modularity and
pixel,
interdependence, all of that is built, right?
modularity
The
and
weight, the
independence.
weight, where it's positioned within it, where people's eyes are drawn
Right,
to, what are the colors, what has, right? The frequency.
exactly,
Then you
exactly,
get into the Fibonacci
exactly.
and how you start to see the design
And
of
you
things
start seeing
all
the whole.
right.
Exactly. So the confidence comes from the ability to recognize that whether expressed or implied. So not
Mm-hmm.
because you can't articulate it doesn't mean that you're not using it. My thing is always to try to articulate to find out all of those things so I can articulate them for other people. Because there's a lot of things people are doing really, really well for themselves, but they don't know how to articulate to others what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So the confidence comes from really putting the work in one area and recognize implicitly or explicitly that it's transferable in other areas. But it doesn't mean that because you're a good basketball player, you're going to be a good track and field
Right.
immediately. I'm
Right.
saying maybe the work ethic. There's certain things there that you could be the best basketball player, the soccer player could be
Mm-hmm.
because he applied most of the. I think like Kobe. If Kobe were to play soccer, he would be a really good soccer player,
And he did
running the
actually.
position,
Interestingly enough,
right?
that's the sport that he played before. But uh, I'll even go a bit further, and it's true. A lot of the times when some of these like Fortune 500 companies, they want to see that you've been able to have a full portfolio, right? You didn't just do one thing.
Yeah,
They want to see that
yeah,
you've played sports or you've dived into other things and your other interests. Not necessarily because that's a one-to-one mapping. This specifically relates to the job, but it's probably due to that transferable skill. But it also speaks to your ability to adapt and really to the confidence that you have, right? And I
yeah,
think
yeah.
I do have one last question. We'll have one last quick question I want to ask you on this topic here is, do you think younger generations misunderstand confidence as arrogance, or are they just expressing it differently?
No, that's another
Right?
deep
Like,
one.
are they
Yeah.
right?
Um,
Do you have to fake the idea of faking it to make it? What do you make of that idea that
yeah, right. I've Yeah, I think in social media you can fake it till you make it because it's just social media, and I think most of that is just faking it. Most things you can't. Most things you can't fake it till you make it. You have to do it, practice it,
mm-hmm,
get good at it, make a lot of mistakes, and so on until you get good at it. That's different from faking it until you make it.
mm-hmm,
So faking it and social media till you make it seems to be possible because I could fake that I have a lot of money, and then people believe that I have money on social media and start buying my courses, and now I have a lot of money. But I think in other things, you can't do that. For example, you can't fake that you're good at AI without doing AI until you make it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You can't fake that you're a good trader. You would know this more than I do. Um, until you have to trade, lose some money.
Right.
No, right? I should right until you make it. So the back to the question that you asked. I guess you're asking if their level of expressing confidence is being misconstrued
And where does it
as
come from? Where does it come from?
and we're yeah.
Yeah.
I think we I just don't want to use one, you know what I mean, like to um look at a few examples and then try to pretend like it's the whole the entire set.
Mm-hmm.
um I think a lot of cases they're faking, they're just fake. Let's take out the fake people out. um if they're actually putting the work, and they're putting the work, and from the work they're doing something that a lot of people are saying is bravado, or they're just showing off and all that stuff, I think it's confidence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you can have confidence. There's a lot of things that can be true at the same time, and you don't have to agree with them, right? So you can have a very smart evil person. You understand?
Mm-hmm.
When you can have a very confident person that's getting under the skin of a lot of people, and he's show off, but he's also confident. So to be a show off person doesn't negate or stop you from being a confident person. You can be
Right.
those two things at the same time, right?
Mayweather, right?
So if Mayweather, yeah, he's so like over the top show off, but he has never lost a match as far as
And
I
look
know,
at his
right?
work ethic. He goes to the
And the work
club.
ethic.
He can go to the club, but he's 2 3 a.m. Or when he was fighting 51 and 0.
Exactly.
He no drinking, discipline.
Rodman,
It was there.
Desmond
Yeah.
Rodman from
Yeah.
my era.
Dennis Rodman.
Okay?
Yeah.
Dennis Rodman,
Yeah.
right? Even Allen Iverson.
Mm-hmm.
Practice? I don't need to. You understand?
Right.
I'm the guy, right? Like that's confidence. But to somebody else, but he put the work in though.
Right.
So he can put the work in. You know what I mean? So I try to answer that question, but it's a very good question. I think. I think it's both, but I don't think we should put in that same set those people who are just faking it. Those are fake people that should stop and go do something. You understand?
Do
Like
the work.
stop
You
faking it.
can't skip, as you said. You can't
Um,
skip time, right? That's the thing.
yeah, yeah, you can't. Yeah, so that's my answer to that one. I
Yeah.
think it's both.
So no, that works. So look, so I like that. Let's actually segue. I think it's actually a good segue into value and ventures topic today, which is what being successful actually means. What does that actually mean to be successful, right? So the opening question I have for you, Dad, is when you were my age, how did you define success, right? And it
The question is, did I even define it?
that's a good
I
yeah.
don't want to go back. Yeah, yeah.
And like, what were
Don't
you thinking
think
that were like, man, if I did this, this is what I want. This is where, you know. And about that time, I think was I born about that? Yeah, it's
yeah,
probably about a couple years.
you're five. You're
Yeah,
five.
yeah. So, what were you thinking at that point about success? I could tell you what I believed it to
Okay,
be.
yeah, you tell me.
Yeah, I believe
What
that
you think?
success at that point was one, you were going to be there no matter what, right? You were not going to let anything come in from, you were going to be here to raise your kids and to show them what it is that you want to show them, teach them what it is so that we can make new mistakes. I think that was one of the main things that,
Yeah,
again, I
as I
was,
said that.
just be there in general, not let anything stop them, educate us, have us understand that real education. I think you just realize some of the tribulations and what the world can be in certain situations. And I think like any good father would, you want to be able to take on the brunt of those things. And so if you were able to do that, I think that was part of what I think success would have looked like, what you thought success would look like at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's, yeah. Okay. I think, yeah, right,
Tell
right.
me if I'm wrong
Because
though.
once no, no, you're not wrong. Because once I had like kids or children, because people were not North America, were not in North America, say what kids? I never see that on TV. But one of my goals, like, but then again, you have several different types of goals that you're trying to achieve. But at the time, my goals were it was very simple. It's to try to make sure that my kids are not brainwashed. Like as I've seen, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Because I at that time I started reading a lot. Like in Jamaica, I used to work at the Institute of Jamaica before I do other jobs. Institute of Jamaica um, at that time consists of the historical society and the art gallery and the library, right? And I work in the library section in the microfilm. So I start reading, and then when I came to Canada, I started reading even more. And there's a lot of stuff I say, oh my God, these people, there's a lot of nonsense they've been tricking us with the education, right? Like I start reading books like the Weapon of Mass Instruction. I just start reading a lot of different books. So that becomes my goal. I start reading books on a lot of books on accelerated learning. So I spend a lot of time reading a book, some lady called Astrander, super learning. Just start learning speed reading, photo reading, um, everything to learn rapidly. So my goal were to make sure that no matter what, my kids will learn how to learn and how to learn all the nonsense that's being taught in school. I remember telling you guys, I wanted to give you, so we start doing like mind mapping and start doing
Mm.
all these logic puzzle
How
and all
long
that
ago
kind of
were
stuff.
we doing mind mapping? 5 years ago, when it became cool, or
Oh man, like
two,
long time. Yeah,
15,
yeah,
20 years before it
yeah,
was
long
even a
time.
thing?
Yeah, yeah. Like we've been doing mind mapping, visualization skill, walking
Hmm.
over different places, seeing
And
things.
let me speak to that
Um,
just for a quick moment there, because story
yeah,
time too. Again, I have two younger sisters. We're 1 year apart. Well, 2 years apart, 1 year, one after the other consecutively. So there's three of us at that age range. So we did a lot of the learning together. And I know a lot of what we had to do. I remember having to read a whole bunch of short novels and having to sit at our dining room table. And my dad asked me,
yeah,
"What's the theme? What's the theme?" And I'm telling you the
yeah.
story, but what do they want you
I
to
don't want.
have you understand?
Yeah,
Humpty Dumpty just fell. Like, I don't know what to tell you. He fell off the wall. Well, what's the point? What's the story, right? So those are the things that, yeah. So those are the
one
things
sec.
that I was thinking. Yeah, no worries. So those are the things that I know you still have your headphones, so I'll just keep going. That I
Yeah,
remember, right? Also remember, for example, watching TV. We made us watch TV with the volume off, completely mute, and see
yeah,
what's going on with the advertisement, seeing what it
yeah.
is that they want us to focus on, and you start to
Catch that
see,
cross, the
right,
Bible.
right, all of that, right? Or you'll see the Advil or pharmaceutical companies, and then you can see the smiling faces. What is this about? And then you realize, no, it's
Yeah,
completely about something else. So this is where the observation skills, seeing more than what's actually there, what do they want you to understand, and then being able to separate what it is that you're interpreting versus what it is that they want you to understand versus, there's a whole
yeah,
bunch of different conversations that I remember. Last thing you mentioned, the speed reading. We had to speed read. I remember at this point in time coming home from school, and man, it's one of those things that you look back and you're happy that you went through it, but you wouldn't want to go through it again. Those ones. I remember with the book, we'd have the book in front of us, and my dad would hold my finger and put it on the book. I'm trying to show you, and then go across and go to the next line, and I wouldn't be finished reading. Keep going. And then we'd read a whole paragraph and you ask me, what's the paragraph about? But we went through it quickly in about 5 seconds. I didn't know what the paragraph was about, but eventually your mind fills it in. You realize that your mind moves a lot faster than your finger
Yeah.
can, right? And it's a way to push yourself and to realize, okay, you're capable of a lot more. And I think there was a little bit of a race to get to that point before the school system started to tell you that these things are
Yeah.
hard, that physics, the moment I
Yeah.
started to realize, and you know this too, Dad, the moment
Yeah.
I started to realize the introduction to calculus and what was calculus, finance, and all those courses that we were doing in elementary school, the biology, which would be, and I could tell you as an academic advisor, some of the things that we were learning are like biology 201, second year university stuff in elementary school. I promise you that. But once I started to realize those were advanced level courses, all of a sudden now I started to feel, looking back at it, like, okay, maybe I can't do this now. I have time to get to this later. Meanwhile, I was
Yeah.
learning all this stuff through osmosis and my younger sisters as well. So
Yeah.
when I think about success, I just want to tie it back to the success. Being successful, you're going to finish that because I
Yeah.
do want to hear what you were thinking at that time. For me, when I think of at this time what it means to be successful, I'm not really thinking about me personally. I feel like I'm in a good situation right now, but I think success is about people and your impact. I feel like I have enough skill set right now to be able to get where I need to get to, but the real measure of success is how many people that are with you can you bring to that level, right? That's the real challenge. Can you bring your team with you? And you told me this too. Perhaps other people have said it. I'm not sure, but you said if I want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, go with people. And so if I want to go far, you got to recognize your team and bringing my team to a high enough point where everybody eats. That's success. And that's what it is that motivates me to finish work or finish whatever and still get up and get going on stuff. So that's where I'm at with this. Obviously, ahead of having a family, starting a family soon and that kind of thought, making sure that I'm stable in certain ways and ready for that. But
Yeah.
so that's me. I'll spin it back to you.
Yeah. Back to the success, what the success means.
Mm-hmm.
Like globally, like in a global sense. I defined it like this, and anything I say, I've read so many books and what did so many courses and stuff like that. So some of the stuff they're not mine, just my version of somebody else's stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, even the far, go alone type stuff. I think that's an African proverb. I think it's an African proverb.
Yeah.
Um, Apologize to the audience because trying to make it through this. Yeah. For me, I define success for myself like this. And a lot of people I know, like people with a lot of money who I maybe work on their team, consult with them. They're saying, Roy, you should be a billionaire right now. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? You could be so much more successful, Roy. Come on, like what's right? And I keep saying success is you achieving the stuff that you deliberately set out to do. Yeah, that's how I kind of if you I deliberately set out to try to make sure that the system don't doesn't like capture the mind of my kids, right? They remember how many times they have to go into school and all that kind of stuff, right? They're saying, oh, they'll never get anywhere, that type of stuff. They're rude and all. So that was one of my main goals after I started having kids. Before having any kids, the idea was for me to be like go to medical school or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That was the core thing until I started reading a whole bunch of books like the Flexner report about medicine and where does actual pharma and all that stuff comes from, and then you know what I mean. Then I kind
Mm-hmm.
of switched back to say, okay, I'm gonna, you know what I mean. So, but the core thing is, I think that's how I define success. And once I have kids, then that become the whole goal is to make sure that you guys, all of you, reach at least 18, and I make sure I protect you from all of this nonsense, so you can think for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like like that was the core idea. So I try to introduce a lot of stuff, as you clearly say, through osmosis, um, just to show you that. Oh, and I will never say, "Yo, you're so smart." Right? I would say, "Yo, you put the work in." Right? You put the
Yeah,
work in.
I know. Yeah, looking back at it, I
Yeah.
noticed that that was
Never
something.
ever say, "Yo, you guys are so smart. You're a G." Never ever. No, doesn't matter what mark you get or what you do. I'll say, "Well, you put the work in," kind of to make sure that because at some point, if I start saying you're so smart, you're gonna be in a position where you're not the smartest person. You're not even one of them. Then you're gonna all of a sudden you think that you're less than, not knowing that you just didn't put the work in yet.
Hmm.
So if you kind of put the emphasis on the work, or you find a strategy, or you find a technique, or you find a body of knowledge or prerequisite or certain things that you're missing, just the missing thing, or you didn't go down deep enough to understand the core principle to come back up with better understanding, right? So I will say I don't care about the mark. Like, oh, but how did you do that? Right? I remember one time you got this math problem wrong, but the way you got it wrong, I was more excited about that. And I'm saying, but here's the dad, it's wrong. I
Hmm.
said, no, forget about that. What did you right? That was more important. So you guys have put a greater emphasis on process and a greater emphasis on loop back, feedback loops, and going back and do things iteratively, right? Okay, you didn't
Hmm.
get it right this time. Doesn't mean that you're dead. And this idea that I put in there where I said most things are reversible, unless you jump off a building or something like that and break your neck. Most things that you do is reversible. So, for example, I will tell you, go fix your own computers.
Hmm.
You can't break it. If you break it, I'll fix it. Right? Do not be afraid. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
that was the core goal, is to make sure that all of you get to 17 or something like that, and nobody can touch your brain, and you can think, and you don't succumb to people because they have a lot of PhD hanging on a wall. Because I've spoken to a lot of PhD that don't really know what they're talking about, and I've spoken to a lot of PhD. No,
Yeah,
no, but I've talked to a
it's
lot of
true.
PhD that do
Yeah,
know, but do know what they're talking about.
right.
So it's not, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah. So it's not, don't do it. I'm just saying, but
That's not the. It's
that
not
was the
what's
goal.
indicative of. Yeah. No.
Yeah,
And so, would you
exactly.
say you
That was
succeeded? That's the last question as we wrap this part up.
well,
So
yes.
far, or
I
have
look,
you feel like you've succeeded altogether?
yeah, because I don't have to do. I can okay. I can teach you, but I can't learn for you. The guy
Right.
said. You
Right.
can. There's a point. Once I do everything that I think I can do, right? Then you have to say, okay, you've done yes. So yeah, the answer is yes. Is but I don't take credit for what you're doing 100%. This was not just me. It's actually your mother and I. We sat down and we planned these things out. That was a good thing, right?
Hmm.
We actually planned these things out. Um, and then yeah. So if I look at Shante, Kayla, Chad, Sasha, all of you, I think Can, I think your mother and I um, succeeded in what we set out to do.
Hmm. You forgot me,
Right?
by the
Um,
way. But anyways, moving on to the next.
that's what
glad to glad to know where I stand with all of this. That's good.
that's funny.
Moving on, moving on to the third segment here. That's health and harmony. I'll just drop the info card there again for you. So, uh,
Well, this one is health and disharmony. It's like,
well, actually, that's fitting, right? Because this is the whole point. So the topic of this one is how are we taught to deal with stress and health? And I know we have. When I hear the word stress, I actually feel like stress is one of those words that it makes you feel exactly how the word is. Saying the word
yeah,
stress makes you feel stressed out. So I try my best to avoid this. And I think you actually did um, some work on this too with us in our childhood as far as words that are associated with that to change the scope. For
yeah,
example, instead of saying things are hard, which are
Yeah.
generally invoke a level of stress or stress inducing emotions or feelings, we would say it's challenging, right? So where other
Yeah.
people have words in the house, swear words, the F word, this word, that word, that you're not able to say in the house, that was still the rule here. We just didn't swear. Not because actually swearing was bad necessarily. I actually think it was more because there was a pride in being able to express yourself or articulate yourself in words. And if you've read enough,
Yeah.
then you should be able
You
to do
should be
that,
able to.
right? I feel
Yeah.
like a lot of people, when it comes to swearing, they swear because it's the way that they know how to express that strong emotion, but they don't have the words to actually do it, and so they do that. But anyway,
Yeah. That's true. Yeah.
I digress, as they say. But so I'll open it up with this question: that did you ever feel pressure to stay strong for the family, even when you were overwhelmed?
Yeah. All the time, man. Yeah. Like that comes with just being. Yeah. This is an emotional topic. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
A lot. Yeah. Sometimes, because remember when you're there's so many things you're trying to do, and for me, yes, coming from Jamaica where I was doing well, right, in one of the like the highest paying type of job, and then come and you have to start over, right, and there's a lot of stuff that you'd like to do, and you feel like breaking down, but you can't do that. That's not. You have to just you have to suck it up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Keep
yeah.
on, keep on, keeping on. Yeah, and I think as you know, as I grew older and you come into your own, you start to. One of the things that happens, I'd say, in your early 20s is that you start to see your parents as people. And that's a situation, that's something that you have to navigate too, because you realize all of it was stressful. Nobody had all the answers. As Kanye says,
Yeah.
you ain't got the answers, right? Nobody has all the answers, and you just kind of do what you can with what you got. And if you're able to do that, then you have to live with the outcome. But the intention is not always equating to the outcome, right? To the outcome that you want, and things, there's other factors, there's other people at play. And so you kind of have to just make do. When it comes to stress, I feel like the best that you can do for your kids or for your friends or family is to try to help them equip tools to be able to navigate stress on their own for when you're not there, but also realize that it's important to know that real friendship and real family are there for you when it's inconvenient. And this is something that you mention quite often is you're not a friend when everything is good. It's easy to be a friend when everything is good and you're going out and there's no worries, but are you there when things are tough, when it's inconvenient, when you're sleeping, when your friend needs somebody to move in the middle of the night and nobody's answering, right? Now you know who your real friends are, right? So that's kind of, or now who you know who your family is. And over time people start to see, you know, one thing with you, Dad, for a lot of people, you're there one moment, you're gone for the next year, 2 years. And then the
Yeah.
moment they need something, you're there again. And I found myself being that type of person with a lot of the network that I have, where people know that they can call my phone and we can skip time. We don't have to do all of the niceties, right? The how are yous and just jump right into it. And I do take pride in that. There's boundaries that need to be set as you get to a certain point, because again, as we talked about in the previous podcast, for every yes that you say, or for every situation you say yes to, you're saying no to many other situations. And so when it comes to stress, I feel like and your kids, you want to make sure to be able to equip them with the tools to be able to navigate it by themselves. I feel like that was done here, where you didn't bail us out. I know one time
Never, never
I
been out.
know you brought me downtown. The first time you brought me downtown, and one of those days you said, "Okay, find your way back home." That was tough. You just I had to find my way back home, take buses. Um,
Yeah, this guy is
this was in
think.
Ottawa. Take one bus, go completely the other way. Have to ask the bus driver, get out of your own shell. Ask people, okay, I'm trying to go here, and eventually I found my way back. I was like what 13, so it's not like I was way too young or anything like that. But again, this is the type of stuff. And I think as a father, one of the things I will do with my kids, especially my sons, is to push them outside their comfort zone. And I think that's
Yeah,
actually the confidence when you talk about stress. It's about being equipped, right? If you're equipped, you're not going to be as stressed. You can still recognize the situation to be what it is. Doesn't mean that you're overconfident or you're not going to be scared. I think I heard a quote that said, bravery is not the absence of fear, but feeling fear and doing
yeah,
it anyways. So it's not an
yeah,
overestimation of self by any means, but it's dealing when stress does come your way. How do you navigate it? And I think both you and mom did a good job of that. And there's times where, yes, you have to let the kids or your friends or family deal with it themselves. You don't want to enable them. But there are times where those situations is not for them to handle or you can step in. I know, for example, with school, I would not have been able to navigate the school system, seeing all the different stuff that they try to,
I
do
get
with
man.
students and right. And so this is where I know, you and mom, the United Front, come in and make sure. And again, any parent would have to do this to be able to advocate for their kids. You have to, because
Yeah,
as much as they want to say they have their best interest, nobody's going to have your kids' best interest more than you or themselves. And so that's kind of where it comes down to. So when I think stress, I'll open it up to you. When I think stress and how to deal with it, you really want to equip as many tools as possible for yourself, but for the people around you. And there's times where you're going to have to be a friend or be a family member, and that's going to be inconvenient. And that's how you navigate stress, is that realize you're part of a network. And hopefully, with that network, they're able to hold you up as you are for other people. But you have to do the work for yourself too. I think that's starting to be a theme for today's episode, doing the work.
yeah, doing the work. And how I navigate stress, and I think I try to instill all these stuff in you guys. Is what I said it earlier. One I said piece of it earlier, and most things are reversible. I think most people are going, they're stressed out because the thing that's happening to them, they think it's this is a fine, there's some type of finality, like this
Mm,
is it, there's never gonna be a, and most of the things, if you think about it, this thing is reversible. There's a few things you can do to reverse this thing,
mm,
unless it's like you jump off a building and headway and break your neck or some crazy stuff like that. That's very, but most things in life are reversible.
mm,
And the other thing I used to tell you guys, even when you're really young, I remember Shantae has a problem at school, and you're a young girl, and you just think everything is, there's a fine. So I said, let's think about it. What is the worst thing that can happen? Okay. Once you find out the worst thing, then you said, okay, is there anything you can do, right, to reduce this worst thing, and even this worst thing that can happen? Is it actually the worst thing that can happen?
mm,
Then you realize the worst thing that can happen isn't the worst thing that can happen, right? All of
mm,
a sudden, but if you kind of, once you shed light on it, all of a sudden you said, okay, the worst thing can happen, I lose my job. Okay, you are you saying you can't find another job? You know what I mean? This is the
mm,
only, you're gonna die, you're gonna starve, right? Like you know what I mean? Like all of a sudden you realize that the worst thing that can happen isn't the worst thing that can happen, and this idea that most things are reversible. Those are the two things I use. I don't even think about anything else. Even if you guys, when you guys were younger and something happened and all the, let's say a game, you lost a game. I said the same thing. Okay, what's the worst thing that can happen? Okay, you have no chance to get back and beat the other team and maybe come back to the,
mm,
just accept the worst thing. Okay, the worst thing, you lost this game. What is the, all of a sudden you just go right back to realize that the world, you don't have to be as stressed. I'm not pretending like I've never gone through stress and all that stuff. But as soon as I recognize, because sometimes when you're stressed, you're not thinking about these logical things. But as soon as I get a pause, there's a pause, boom, I always go back mechanically. Like, is this reversible? Or if this is the worst thing, what can I do to make it less worse? If that's the word, if that's possible. And soon, even if you don't do anything, all of a sudden that reduces your stress. I'm just going to throw some numbers out, but at least 50%. You're not as stressful anymore. Your mother and I used to have that issue because she wanted me to stress, and I said, "No, I'm not going. No, because right, I already gone to the worst thing that can happen, and I'm already start moving back from there, where people kind of get stuck at the worst thing and start going the other direction of the worst thing, where I accept the worst thing and start moving back to normalcy. That is the key trick I use. And I've been in a lot of worse things. I can tell you that. Like, I've been in a lot of situations where most people would give up a long time ago. Like, crazy amount of the stuff I've been through in this world. And I always use those two things. The funny thing is, now that I'm talking about it, I've been using this since I was like a young child. And I can't remember where those things came from. And I always think I made these things up. And then I found out, no, other people, these ideas are around, but some of them I didn't learn it anywhere. I just rediscover them. But other people have discovered them long before I did. I do. But that is the core thing that I use, and I've used it and helped a lot of people when I used to mentor young people, and they always think, okay, my life is over, lost my job or something like that. And I said, okay, what is the worst thing that can happen if you lose your job? Know that you lost your job. What's the worst thing can happen? And then let them really define it. Talk about it. List out all the worst things. What is the implication of the worst thing that can happen? The other thing too, here's the other part. This is more interesting. Most of the time, that worst thing that can happen usually never did. They never do. It's called worst thing for a reason. It's called worst thing for a reason. Yeah, it's called worst thing can happen for a reason. It's an outlier, right? It's an outlier. It's not going to happen every day. Happen a few times. So yeah, so those are the things I do. I always employ those tricks to deal with stress. And yeah, I was saying before, because I'm looking at you. So just to repeat this part, this worst thing that can happen, ask them how many times that worst thing did happen. Very few times that worst thing that can happen actually happened. But if it did, a lot of cases, it's completely reversible with a little time, or do something else.
And I would even say there's times where that worst thing that you thought, after you look at it, turns out to be the best thing, either in time. And every time you think about when you look back and you say, man, if I never got fired at this point, I never would have met so-and-so, which turned into so-and-so, and this opportunity here. I'm now living long enough now to see how certain events 7 years ago, 8 years ago, that I was distraught by, taken aback. And I'm like, man, it's because of that I missed the bus that day, and I just what happened to. And it seems like a movie, but really everybody's life is a movie in that sense, right? And the worst case scenario is the things that, right? And I said this before, it's, I want to live because of how many moments I had like that, I said, you know what? I want the things that I regret to become the things that I most appreciate. And that came about when I had went to school for the, university my first year, and then left and then came back. And all of a sudden now that becomes the things that I most appreciated, because I realized how the world is navigated, and that switched my scope entirely to be able to focus and wanting to help people in the ways that I do, right? Finding the purpose and moving with purpose and intention. So I'm happy with all that. I think that brings us into our fourth segment topic of the day. Again, in the foundations and framework, there is the info card there for some more context. And so the topic here is it's related. Yeah, no worries. Is how so the topic is how conversations have changed across generations. So the opening question is, do you think it's harder or easier to have honest conversations today? Sorry, that's for the culture connection. So the question is, what did failure mean in your generation? So I'll repeat the topic again. So the topic is failure and learning the hard way. But what did failure mean in your generation? And so let me just think. I'll just tell you what I think that means for older generations or elder generations. I think a lot of elder generations put a lot of stock in their kids, as they should. My generation, I think you start to see a bit of a shift. We're not having as many kids and a whole bunch of other stuff, but your kids going to university, your kids graduating, I think so much of how a parent or how a person that has children, especially around my age, mid 20s, 30s, if their kids don't graduate, a lot of them actually look at it, and I don't think they should, that they failed in some way if their kids don't graduate, right? I think that's one of the ways that I think your generation might look at who's successful, who's not compared to their peers. So I'm interested to know what you think as far as your generation thinks of failure in general, but how do they define failure? How do they look at failure?
I, I can't speak for my generation because I'll give you a guess. Or I think that
Mm-hmm.
remember, but I'm not pretending to speak for the entire Gen Xers, right? But I think a lot of them think in terms of whatever they were taught is, and it's coming from a good place. So they're saying, okay, look, you need to get a good education so you can get a good job, so you can eventually have a wife and settle down, and there's some selfish thing there. It's like this idea of a selfish gene. Most people wants to continue to live through their offspring and their offspring's offsprings, right? So I think that is the motivation. So anything that they think will help that to extend themselves in the future, that's what they're going to decide
Mm-hmm.
success and failure means. I think that's I'm not a philosopher, but I think that has something to do with it, or evolutionary biologist. But I think that has a very I think that has a big part of it. So if the society tells them that one way to do that, to succeed, um, for your offspring to move on to the next generation, and so on and so on, they need to have a good education and get a good job and all that, because that's one of the way to escape poverty, right? The, so that's why they're, in my opinion, they put such a strong emphasis on, if you do not finish university or at least finish college or high school or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
you're a failure no matter what, unless you're Zuckerberg or
Right.
the Zuckerberg of the world, or those people who dropped out of
Ivy League
college or university
dropout
or high
types.
school.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, and then go on to build $1 billion company. Well, $1 billion company proves that they were right, but that's an isolated case, and they're outliers, and you can't use outliers as if they're the mean. Like you can't expect
Mm-hmm.
outliers, right? So I think that's so I think that's the motivation. The problem with that is things have been changed for some time now, where I remember long time ago, maybe 20, 30 years ago, I was saying education is going to change, and you're going to get the same type of education online, and people are saying that doesn't make any sense. And then MIT, the in my opinion, the top technical university on the planet, decided that they're going to open up their courses. I remember it's called MIT Open Courseware. So at that time, I set up. I'll get back the relevance of this in 2 seconds. But I set up a Google Alert back when I don't know if anybody use Google Alert these days, but I would set up a Google Alert, and Google Alert is if something happened, it will alert me, something change in the future or something like that. So I would set up a Google Alert when I heard them talking about MIT Open is going to open up their entire universe, most of their courses with the notes, the videos, the audio, and all that. And I remember people were saying, no, because it's not going to mean anything because you need to have the paper and all that kind of stuff. And for a doctor or a pilot, I want them to have that. No pilot is going to say, I slept at the Holiday Inn last night. Right? I'm not taking that plane. Right? So you still need that type of
certification, qualification.
Certificate, qualification. Say you have done this before. You can't go take out somebody's heart if it's your first time. I understand the importance of it. But most things don't require all that stuff now, especially with AI and how education has significantly changed, where most of those knowledge that was hidden in Harvard and MIT and all that stuff is now online, and you can read those books and you can do the same type of stuff, even better. So I think that failure mode has to change. So but I clearly see it start changing. Even some government jobs nowadays said, okay, the degree or necessary experience. Right. You understand?
Like I remember that shift. Yeah, when it was just 4-year degree, master's, and then it's this or relevant experience, right?
Right, or relevant experience. Right. Yeah. So it's been a shift. So I think that shift is going to come with your generation and the Gen Zs. They're going to have to shift it because in a couple of years, if you want to learn, you're going to go into some kind of AI simulation, and you can walk around the body, and you can maybe in an immersive experience learn science, art, technology, and all that stuff by just putting on a game like thing, and you're now inside a cell.
Right.
You're not, university is not going to have a monopoly on these things, right? The AI models, the big ones that cost trillions of dollars, they're just the big ones. Very soon, we're not going to need them anymore because those ones, we use them. It's called distill, like a distill model. We use them to train smaller models that's really good at things that we are interested in. You're going to have a lot of vertical, and they know way they can just reverse it and say, okay, we're not going to get, doesn't work like that, right? So you're going to find out that you guys are going to force to say, kind of like coders. Like I used to do, I'm a computer person. Like I usually say like computer science, but I do all things computers, hardware, whatever. So, we have been doing this for the longest time, right? So that's why you can see a young person, like a teenager, working at Google. If he can code and show that he can code, he's getting hired. So in the tech world, that's already been happening for years and years.
100%. High school, right? They code at 16, 17.
You're working at Google.
You're working at Google. There is no, I need you to go to get a 4-year degree. No, they
and design does the same thing.
Right.
Design does the same thing. Right. They say, show me your portfolio.
That's truly the merit-based
portfolio.
If you think about it,
that is a meritocracy.
Right.
That is the
which is what we're saying in the education is supposed to serve. But
yes.
So I'll ask you one last question as it relates to this, right? So the topic being failure and learning the hard way. Is there a mistake or quote failure, in quotations there, that you hoped that I wouldn't have to learn the hard way? In other words, that you didn't want me to experience that same failure, but perhaps navigate around it. Because some failures, people say that failing builds character, right? Is there one in particular, one thing that you can think of that you felt like, okay, that'd be great to learn, but you'd rather me not have gone through if I could help
Like,
it, if you can
like,
help it.
like you should stand up for yourself, and then you beat up some dude and then learn the hard way in
Mm,
jail
right.
with a criminal record. Like, right? Like, yeah, yeah, simple things like that. But outside going to jail or get sick, injured, and all that kind of stuff, I think it's sometimes I believe that is you shouldn't be learning the mistake that I could prevent you from making. Because that's not how the world works. The world works based on we evolve because of we pass knowledge down, right? Like if you notice, a bird learn how to fly, it will teach, right? The baby comes with flying in his DNA memory type thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
All this stuff fly, right? So my thing was always, look, like if I already know all this, go all through this mistake, you shouldn't be going through the same set of mistakes. There's going to be enough new mistake that you need to go through that not having gone through the mistake that I've gone through, it's not going to hinder you in any way. In
Mm.
fact, it's going to give you an unfair advantage, right? Because um the old money and all those people do. What they do. Most of the business that they're learning, the kids are learning around that dinner table, right? All the different life lessons, and they're not letting those young people, their sons and daughters, go through all the stuff that they have learned and corrected those mistakes. They're teaching them through osmosis and through experience, and sometimes outright at the dinner table that this is what we're doing and all that stuff. And that's why I said same education, not equal education. So when you end up in the same room with those same people, you think you and them are at the same level. But the thing is, their parents and uncle already make sure that those mistakes that we have learned, we've gone through and solved them and figure it out. We're going to show you that you now
Mm-hmm.
go make some new mistake. So the question, the type of mistake that I want you to learn, there's no way I could prevent you from making them because I don't even know them myself. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So the best way I can answer that question is I don't want you to make any of the mistake that I already made, because I'm going to show you, like, don't do this, don't do this. Like, I'm lucky to be alive, because I did that, right? Because you're going to have your own set of mistakes, but now you're over here you're on this level now making your own mistake. If I allow you to make the same mistake, then we're not growing somebody in the family has to take some kind of
Somebody got to
sacrifice.
do, right.
Now somebody has to take like if every generation is repeating the
Plateaued.
same mistake, they're going to be on the same level. Somebody has to, and then say, yo, don't do none of this nonsense, or do this, and this. So you can know on this level with your people who on that level making those mistakes. I can't help. There's no way. I don't even know what those mistakes are.
Mm-hmm.
I can only know the mistake that I know. Right. So the answer is I wouldn't want you to make any mistake that I already know. So I'll show you that this is it. This is what's gonna do. Because there's going to be enough new mistake for you to make by yourself.
Perfect.
That is the answer. Yeah.
That's all I have to say about that. Okay. So last segment here, Dad, which I think relates well to that, and I do hear that 100%. And I wasn't thinking about it like that in the different levels and really looking at it on a generational standpoint, which is interesting enough because this is the Generation Gap podcast. But
Yeah.
you're looking at it from the standpoint of the longer now, right? And from that perspective, it's not necessarily me and you, but looking at the trajectory of our lineage, of the family tree, family line. And we should really
Exactly.
be making new mistakes within a different context. And hopefully in a more
Exactly.
advanced context, bringing us forward.
Yeah.
Last segment here of the day goes to culture and connections. You'll see there the info card. Again, pause the video if you want a bit more context. So the last topic here is how conversations have changed across generations. So the opening question I have for you is, do you think it's harder or easier to have honest conversations today than it was before? And we're talking about family and friends. Is it easier today? Is it
Yeah.
harder today? Is it easier before? What's your thoughts?
Um, much harder today. Not for me, because I'm going to just talk what have in mind. Like
Mm-hmm.
that political correctness type stuff. I'm not doing none of that. But yeah, but back in the people have less thick skin, right? So you could just, first of all, there's so many words and things that nowadays that you can't say, you can't, you know,
Mm-hmm.
it's crazy. Like I'm not doing none of that. So I'm sure it's like 10,000 times harder now because you have
Right.
to be thinking of like there's so many different social thing that this that you don't even yo this I don't know, man. It's weird.
And Jordan Peterson once said that uh, you have to be willing to offend someone in order to engage in a discussion or something along to that effect. As far as generations go, I think there's always going to be some misunderstanding or miscommunication just because I think we're having two different conversations a lot of the times. I think younger generations, if you're a child to a parent, for example, you think you're having a conversation about the apple juice that fell off the counter and that it wasn't being cleaned up, and you don't think it's a big deal because you just cleaned it up after you were being asked. Whereas the conversation that's being had on the parent side is about discipline. It's about you know you did something wrong, have the integrity, pick it up, clean it up, right? Be responsible, accountable. These are values that will benefit you in the future. And those sort of that dissonance will always exist, more or less. But as far as I reach an age, you reach an age, we're speaking in the right context. I definitely believe it's harder to have conversations now. Even I've seen it in friendships. I've seen it in activities. One on a social political standpoint, as you've brought up, but I also think on a technological standpoint as well. Without the in-person relationships, without the you guys having gone through something, winter storm again. You mentioned Canada, the weather, having not been outside, or you're not, you know, car broke down, bus broke down, and your friends are there. A lot of these things are not being assisted. How do I say? You're not experiencing a lot of these moments, especially these newer generations in this new time. Whereas before, you would have gone through that with people, and so you don't have these memories to really tie us, so that when we do engage in conversations, the trust is not so much built in. I know where you're coming from. When you're telling me something and I might not like it, I have to think to myself, what is this person's intentions? And with that comes, okay, they've always been there. They've always had my back. They've been with me in the tough times. They would only be saying this if they really cared. You can kind of go back to that, and I think that allows for conversations to flow in a certain way, to be received in a certain manner. And I think it's harder to have those conversations because everyone's scared to say exactly what they think. And I think that's not how it should be. I think that's actually the wrong way to think about it. And I'll bring it to something that you said. And I say you said, but again, these are just memories in time. It's not something that you've just, maybe they are, you tell me. But the idea that with new information, you're allowed to change your mind. You're
Yeah.
not married to your thoughts, right? You're okay with new information. If I said I'm going to go to the store today, great. If I find out there's a power outage or a mass shooting or something like this, I'm not going anymore. I shouldn't be held to the standard of I shouldn't be held to the standard that I'm not going anymore. Right? With new information, I'm allowed to change my mind. And I think that sort of freedom, that sort of grace is what we need to do. I know, and last thing I'll say to that is when I went to the boarding school, I was part of the debate club. And one of the rules, this is where you'd go and you do the parliamentary debating. Good morning, Mr. Speaker. Today the bill at hand is this. We as the opposition believe X, Y, and Z. Today we discuss, that sort of debate. But before any debate, you have about a 2 to 3 minute deliberation period where you discuss the terms and the context of the conversation. And one of the fundamental principles of debating is that you have to give grace. You have to take what it is that they're saying in good faith, that they're coming from a good place, and you take it charitably. And so that is what you look to discuss. But I think even that part of it, if you're not able to agree on the terms, the debate doesn't happen. You guys have to agree on certain definitions, the scope, and we're not even able to agree on the definitions and the scope of certain conversations, which of course
Yeah.
is going to make it a lot harder. And then you add technology, you add the political climate, a whole bunch of things. So it's definitely harder. I feel like, and the last thing I'm going on a bit longer, but I definitely feel even with, you mentioned in the last podcast episode how the context has changed and how one of the challenges for the older generations is to not bring what they knew to be true and helpful in one period of time, not to transport that in today's time, believing that it's going to have the same impact. You were speaking about, I think one of the people that you had mentored there who had just got a new job and they added on a whole bunch of responsibility to him. And imagine if somebody told him just to focus on one thing. So I think there's
Yeah.
many layers to it. I think it's definitely harder in today's time. I think there's things that we can do to get around it. Education is part of it, equipping tools, but we can definitely kind of get into that a bit later. So I'll leave it up to you. Do you believe honesty should ever be softened to protect relationships? Like, do you think that
Yeah.
honesty is
Yeah.
the best policy? So,
Honestly, can't do
right.
yourself with George Bush. No, yeah, I think everything is has to be seen in a contextual way. So if a person is suicidal, for example, because their face is disfigured or something like that, and it's true, are you gonna say, yeah, whoa, this is ripped off, man? That's terrible. You know what I mean? Like that. So they would just go and kill themselves. So maybe you should not do that.
Mm-hmm.
So there are times when you have to not be just delay certain things or soften it. Yeah, contextually.
Mm-hmm.
The only problem I just don't like, I just don't like doing stuff like that. But but you have to at times ready to just avoid say, okay, this is not the right time to say that, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to lying. Right?
Have you ever had
Just
that
don't.
with me? Do you ever feel like? Did you ever feel like this is not the right time to say something to me, and you, in a later point in time, you'll get it
Yeah, a
in
lot of time.
time.
Yeah, well, you answer that question.
No, you could be honest.
Yes,
There, you could be honest.
I don't need to be.
Just me and you here.
Yeah, yeah. Like even with your couple of your mentors, a couple of things, you know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And, I let that slide for a while, and then you say, okay, you know, don't want to call, don't want to dox people.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the word you guys use?
No, I
You
know
don't
the
want to.
docs. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There are times. There's a lot of things I just let, but some things it's best people learn through like self discovery. It's one of the best way to learn when you discover certain things yourself. But but usually there's a time component, right? And if the person isn't like you taking too long to learn certain things, and I think you have to learn it now, you're gonna take forever, right? Like eh, there's there's certain things sometimes it's not like it's not reversible, but how long it's gonna take, right? And when you could just almost effortlessly solve this problem, and if that's where you're trying to go. Yeah, there's a couple of times. Can't remember anything off the top of my head right now.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this flu is crazy.
You've been pushing that. You've been pushing. I see.
Yeah.
One of the things with my dad, if he's ever feeling under the weather, it's never something that he'd ever bring up. He doesn't really like to share too much as far as sickness or anything like that. He'll just go through it. So if you seeing this and still getting through the podcast, that honestly, that's tremendous. We got the bright lights. We got a lot of stuff going on and the effort to actually put it all together. So I actually, yeah, yeah. So I'll
No,
let
because
you.
you were talking. No, you called yesterday. You were saying, "Dad, we're having the podcast tomorrow." No,
Mm,
Thursday.
yeah.
And my girlfriend was laughing. Like, okay, yeah, what podcast? Because I'm
Yeah.
sick. Like I was going through crazy stuff. Because my thing is everything that you think you're going through, there's a 5 million people would like to switch with you in a moment. Like just imagine those people in like war torn areas like the Middle East in Gaza right now. And I'm talking about I'm sick. Come on, man. Those are people. Those people have it really bad. This will go away in a couple of days, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, come on. Those, yeah. That's why I try not to share too much bad luck story with people. I just try to go through it, but can't complain with this. Yeah, I'm really, really down with this. Whatever this is, my
Mm-hmm.
joints, my teeth, my head's hurting, eyes, everything. But I can tell you, there's 1 million people right now would be so happy to switch with me. You know what I mean? Like they're going through crazier stuff, so it's good. I just want to apologize to anybody who's listening or one fan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You,
Mm-hmm.
right? This is the worst we're gonna be.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna just this is the worst this is gonna be. We're just trying to learn as much as we can and try to get all these things correct with the right topic, and it's only gonna get better from here.
I
Yeah.
agree. So here's it. I accept one. I accept your apology. So the so that's the episode 3, Generation Gap Bridging the Gap podcast, episode 3. I actually like this flow. Again, each episode we're adjusting, we're trying something new. Some of the adjustments we'll have discussions. What you'll actually see in the next installment, the next episode, is one where we're going to do somewhat of a channel update, speak to where we are, speak to some of the behind the scenes stuff that's going on, but not just behind the scenes, but what we plan to do in the future. Perhaps speak a bit more about the Patreon community involvement, how you guys can get involved with that. We'll kind of let you in on that. Not kind
Yes,
of.
and
We are going to let you in on those.
yep, and some of the stuff that we're working on, like or certain things we're working on in AI, certain projects that we're working on. I try to share as much knowledge for people to upscale their mental prowess with AI and agentic workflow and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
We'll show you some of the stuff that we're working. That we might put that in the Patreon, but we'll be discussing and creating things for the community as we grow. So whatever you guys are doing, we'll be showing you how we can help you make progress as we're making progress ourselves in this podcast.
1,000%. All the
Yeah.
while, we are bridging these gaps, guys. So we have discussions, right? You are welcome at this table. You are part of this conversation. But even with that, we do have a mission, we do have a vision, and we are moving towards that exactly. So that's what we're doing. A lot of content to come, tutorials as well too, a whole bunch of things. So we'll kind of get into it in that next episode. So stay tuned for that. And again, if there's anything that you found interesting, anything that you want us to speak to, that's really the conversation, that next episode where you want to provide that feedback, or you can leave those, comment below or comment wherever you are, which platform, and we'll definitely be able to see that and take that into consideration. So that's it, guys, for today. I think my dad needs to go take some Hulls or
Yeah.
Pepto Bismol or something like that. I don't know, but
No, no.
we'll leave him to it. I'll leave it there. My name is Roydell. That's Roydell. That side.
Roydell.
Roydell and Roydell. We'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.
Peace.